The crystal towers of Kithara Prime shook as another wave of enemy ships passed overhead. High Archon Zelthera pressed her crystalline hands against the viewing wall of her command chamber, watching her beautiful world burn. The sky was filled with massive organic ships that looked more like giant insects than spacecraft. They moved with purpose, landing on the surface to consume everything in their path. Archon, we have lost contact with the northern colonies, reported Commander Veltar, his crystal body flickering with stress patterns. The Vorthic feeding ships have stripped 3 more cities bare. Nothing remains but rock. Zelthara closed her eyes, feeling the pain of her dying world through the crystal network that connected all Kithara. Each death was like losing a piece of her own soul. In 6 months, the Vorthic horde had destroyed 90% of their space. 7 peaceful worlds had been reduced to empty shells. Her people, who had never known war, were being eaten alive. How many ships do we have left? She asked, though she already knew the answer would bring no hope. 43 vessels Archon. Mining ships, exploration craft, and cargo haulers. Nothing built for war, because we never needed war. Veltar's voice carried the weight of the impossible situation. The Vorthic have over 2,000 bioships in this system alone. The Kithara had always been peaceful. Their crystal worlds provided everything they needed. They had spent thousands of years studying art, music, and science. They had never developed weapons because they had never needed them. When the first Vorthic scouts arrived, the Kithara had tried to communicate, to understand what these strange organic ships wanted. The answer came quickly and brutally. The Vorthic wanted everything. They consumed entire planets, breaking down all organic and mineral matter to fuel their endless growth. They were not conquerors who wanted slaves or tribute. They were devourers who left nothing behind. Archon, the Council of Elders is assembled, Veltar announced. They wait for your decision. Zelthera walked through the crystal corridors of her command station, her footsteps echoing like music. The walls pulsed with soft light, responding to her emotional state. Fear, sadness, and desperate determination flowed through the crystal matrix. Other Kithara she passed stopped and bowed, their own crystal forms reflecting her pain. The council chamber was a dome of pure crystal that normally sparkled with rainbow light. Now it was dim, reflecting the dark mood of the 7 elders who had survived the destruction of their worlds. Each elder represented millions of dead Kithara, entire civilizations erased by the Vorthic hunger. We cannot fight them. Elder Mordain spoke first, his ancient crystal form scarred by grief. Our ships were built to explore and discover, not to wage war. We do not even understand how to build weapons that could hurt their bioships. Running has failed, added Elder Zinara, her light flickering weakly. We tried to hide in the outer systems. They found us anyway. Their scout ships track us across space itself. Elder Torvin, the youngest of the council, stood and faced Zelthera directly. There is one option we have not tried. The Great Archive speaks of it, though we always believed it was just legend. Zelthera felt a ripple of unease through the crystal network. The Great Archive contained the oldest Kithara knowledge, including many things that sounded impossible. Speak plainly, Torvin. We are beyond the luxury of careful words. The Deathworld summoning, Torvin said, his voice barely above a whisper. The ancient texts describe a ritual that calls forth warriors from the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy, planets so harsh that their inhabitants know only survival and war. The chamber fell silent, except for the distant rumble of Vorthak feeding ships. The other elders flickered with patterns of fear and doubt. They had all read the old stories, but none had believed them to be real. The texts are clear, Torvin continued. In the darkest hour, when peaceful people face extinction, the galaxy itself will provide champions. Warriors forged by worlds. That would kill any normal species. Elder Mordane's light pulsed with anger. Fairy tales and children's stories. We are scientists and artists, not believers in magic. What science has saved us? Torvan shot back. What art has stopped the Vorthic from eating our children? If there is even a chance that Deathworlders exist, should we not try? Zelthara studied the ancient text that Torven projected into the chamber. The symbols were old, from a time when the Kithara were young and still believed in wonders. The ritual was complex, requiring the combined power of their remaining crystal towers across 3 worlds. How many warriors would this summon? She asked. The text is unclear, Torven admitted. It speaks of those who answer the call of the innocent. Perhaps a dozen fighters, maybe less. But Archon, what choice do we have? Through the crystal network, Zelthura felt the death screams of another city. The Vorthic were methodical, consuming everything in perfect geometric patterns. Soon they would reach the last population centers. Soon there would be no Kithara left to save. The power required will drain our remaining energy reserves, warned Elder Zenara. If this fails, you will not have enough power to evacuate the survivors. If we do nothing, there will be no survivors. T.O. evacuate, Zelthura replied. She looked at each elder, seeing the desperate hope mixed with fear in their crystal forms. I will not let our people die without trying everything. She activated the communication network, sending her voice to every surviving Kithara across. There are 3 remaining worlds. My people, we face our final hour. The Vorthic consume our worlds, and our peaceful ways cannot stop them. We will attempt something that our ancestors spoke of only in whispers. We will call for help from those who know war as we know art. Across the crystal cities, the great towers began to hum with power. Every Kithara contributed their energy to the massive ritual. They did not understand the science behind it, but they understood desperation. The towers grew brighter, their harmonic vibrations creating a song that could be heard across the planet. The energy built slowly, drawn from crystal matrices that had stored power for centuries. The harmonic frequency rose higher and higher, reaching beyond sound into something that touched the very fabric of space itself. The Kithara poured their remaining strength into the ritual, knowing it might be their last act as a free people. High above the dying worlds, the energy burst, outward in a wave that crossed the galaxy in moments. It was not magic, though the Kithara did not understand the quantum mechanics behind it. It was a distress beacon, transmitted on frequencies that most species could not detect. But somewhere in the darkness of space, others were listening. Others who had been forged by worlds where every day was a battle to survive. Others who understood that sometimes peaceful people needed warriors to protect them. The call went out, carrying the desperate hope of a dying species. And in the vast emptiness between the stars, an answer was already forming. Admiral Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the impossible happened. He was sitting in his captain's chair aboard the USS Liberty, reading reports from the night shift, when every screen in the command center suddenly lit up with a same signal. Sir, we are receiving a transmission unlike anything in our databases, reported Lieutenant Karen White from the communication station. Her voice carried confusion and concern. The signal is not coming from any known human. Frequency. Morrison set down his coffee and walked to the communication station. The screen showed wave patterns that moved like music, but when he listened through the speakers, he heard something that made his blood run cold. It was not words or music. It was pure emotion translated into sound. Fear, desperation, and the crying of children who were about to die. Where is this coming from? Morrison asked, though part of him already knew the answer would be impossible. Everywhere, sir, White replied, her hands shaking as she worked the controls. The signal is broadcasting from somewhere outside our galaxy, but it is reaching every human outpost at the same time. That should not be possible. Morrison had been in the Space Navy for 20 years. He had seen alien artifacts, fought space pirates, and survived 3 different wars. But nothing had prepared him for the sound of an entire species begging for help across the void of space. Sir, incoming priority messages from Earth Command, Mars Station, and the Outer Colony Defense Grid, called out Ensign Tony Garcia from the tactical station. Every human military installation is receiving the same signal. The signal changed, and suddenly Morrison could understand it. Not the words, because there were no words, but the meaning behind the harmonics. Peaceful people were being eaten alive by something that consumed entire worlds. Children were dying while their parents watched helplessly. An ancient and gentle civilization was being erased from existence. All stop, Morrison ordered. Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them Admiral Morrison is declaring a Code 7. Emergency. His bridge crew looked at him with surprise. Code 7 had never been used before. It was reserved for threats to all human life, situations where the entire species was in danger. Sir, are you sure? Asked Commander Helen Foster, his first officer. Code 7 will mobilize every available ship in human space. Morrison listened to the alien signal again, hearing the desperation and innocence in those crystalline harmonics. Commander, something out there is killing an entire species. Something that eats planets. If we ignore this, what happens when it finds Earth? Within 6 hours, space around the Liberty began filling with ships. The heavy cruiser Defiant arrived first, commanded by Captain Lisa Rodriguez. Morrison had served with Rodriguez during the Centauri conflicts, and he knew she would not hesitate to fight impossible odds. Jake, what the hell is going on? Rodriguez asked over the communication link. I pulled my ship off shore leave because of some alien distress call. Lisa, listen to this, Morrison replied, and played the Cathara transmission. Rodriguez was quiet for several minutes after hearing the signal. When she spoke again, her voice was different. How many ships do we have incoming? Over 200 so far, with more arriving every hour, Morrison answered. Every captain who heard this signal is coming. Marines, fighters, support ships, even some civilian vessels that want to help. Commander Ryan Hayes arrived with a squadron of fighters from the Vega system. He had been conducting training exercises when the signal reached them. His pilots had voted unanimously to abandon training and respond to the distress call. Admiral, my pilots are asking the same question Hayes reported. Who are these people, and why should we risk human lives for them? Morrison was about to answer when Dr. Elena Vasquez came onto the bridge. She had been working for 18 hours straight, trying to decode more of the alien transmissions. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but her voice was steady. Admiral, I have been able to translate more of their communications, she said. The species calling for help are called the Cathara. They are crystal-based life forms who have never developed weapons. They do not understand war because they have never needed to fight. She activated a holographic display showing the translated messages. The enemy is called the Vorphic Horde. They are biological ships that consume entire planets. They break down all matter and use it to grow more ships. They have been spreading across the galaxy for millions of years. The bridge fell silent. As the implications became clear, the Vorphic were not just threatening the Cathara. They were a cancer that consumed everything in their path. If they were not stopped, they would eventually spread to human space. How long do the Cathara have? Morrison asked. Based on their transmissions, maybe days, Vasquez replied. The Vorphic are conducting a final assault on their last 3 worlds. After that, the Cathara will be extinct. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing human ships still arriving from across space. Dreadnoughts, destroyers, carrier groups, marine assault ships, and supply vessels. The largest human fleet ever assembled was gathering in response to a cry for help from strangers. "Admiral, we have a problem," reported Lieutenant White. "The Kithara distress signal is weakening. I think they are running out of power." Morrison felt a cold anger building in his chest. Somewhere out there, peaceful people were dying while their children watched. An ancient civilization was being erased by mindless hunger. The Kithara had reached out across the galaxy, hoping someone would care enough to help. They had found humanity. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he broadcast to the growing fleet. "We are going to jump to Kithara space. We do not know what we will find there, but we know innocent people are dying. Every ship captain has volunteered to be here. Every Marine has chosen to fight for strangers. That is what makes us human." He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew. They were scared, but they were determined. They understood that some things were worth fighting for, even when the odds were impossible. "The enemy thinks they are facing another peaceful species," Morrison continued. "They have never fought someone from a death world. They have never faced humans who grew up fighting for every breath, every meal, every day of life. They are about to learn what happens when you threaten the innocent in front of Terrans." The fleet began moving into jump formation. Over 300 ships from across human space, united by a simple idea that peaceful people deserved protection. They did not know the Kithara. They had never met them or traded with them, but they had heard children crying for help, and that was enough. "All ships jump on my mark," Morrison ordered. "Time to show the galaxy what Earth's children can do." The stars shifted, and humanity went to war for people they had never met. The Kithara had called for warriors from a death world, not knowing they had found the most dangerous protectors in the galaxy. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Kithara territory, and Admiral Morrison felt his stomach turn at what he saw. 3 crystal worlds hung in space like beautiful gems, but they were covered in scars. Dark patches marked where cities had been consumed. Organic ships the size of mountains moved across the surfaces like giant parasites, eating everything in sight. "Dear God," whispered Commander Foster from beside him. "They are really eating the planets." Morrison watched through the main viewer as a Vorthic feeding ship landed on what had once been a crystal city. The ship extended tubes into the ground and began sucking up everything around it. Buildings, trees, even the soil itself disappeared into the creature's belly. Within minutes, a square mile of civilization became bare rock. "Admiral, sensors are picking up massive biosignatures," reported Ensign Garcia. "Over 2,000 Vorthic vessels in this system. Some of them are over 50 miles long." Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system from the Defiant. "Jake, are you seeing this? Those things are not ships. They are alive." Morrison had fought in 3 wars, but he had never seen anything like the Vorthic bioships. They moved through space like swimming fish, their hulls pulsing with organic rhythms. Some looked like giant insects with wings made of living tissue. Others resembled sea creatures with tentacles that could wrap around entire space stations. "Sir, incoming transmission from one of the crystal worlds," Lieutenant White announced. "I think it's from the survivors." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a being made of living crystal. Her form was beautiful, but clearly alien, with light patterns flowing through her transparent body. When she spoke, her words came through as musical tones that the computer translated into English. "Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves," the crystal being said. "We are the Kithara. If you are here to help, we beg you to hurry. The Vorthic are beginning their final feeding cycle." Morrison stepped forward. "I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress signal. We are here to help." The crystal being's light patterns changed to what looked like surprise and hope. Terran, we do not know this species. How many warriors have you brought? 300 ships and about 200,000 personnel, Morrison replied. The alien's form flickered so brightly it almost hurt to look at her. 200,000? But the text said the summoning would bring only a few dozen fighters at most. Morrison was about to ask what she meant by summoning when alarms started screaming all across the Liberty's bridge. Sir, Vorthic vessels are moving toward us, Garcia called out. Looks like about 50 of their bioships, including some of the big ones. Through the viewer, Morrison watched the alien ships approach. They moved without any formation or apparent strategy, just swimming through space like hungry animals toward fresh meat. Their biohulls were covered in what looked like teeth and claws. Some had eyes the size of buildings that glowed with alien intelligence. Sir, they are not responding to any communication attempts, White reported. I do not think they communicate the way we do. Morrison watched as one of the Vorthic ships opened what could only be described as a mouth. Rows of organic teeth lined a cavity large enough to swallow a city block. The creature was getting ready to feed on human ships, the same way it had fed on Cathara worlds. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, he broadcast to the fleet. Weapons free. Show these things what happens when they threaten peaceful people. The response was immediate and devastating. 300 human ships opened fire at once. Kinetic. Rounds moving at nearly light speed punched through biohulls like they were made of paper. Plasma cannons designed to crack asteroids turned feeding ships into burning organic debris. Missile swarms found their targets and exploded in brilliant flashes. The Vorthic had never faced an enemy that fought back. For millions of years, they had consumed species that either could not fight or did not know how to fight effectively. The peaceful races they ate had tried to reason with them or run away. None had ever responded with immediate and overwhelming violence. Captain Rodriguez led her destroyer group in a direct assault on one of the larger bioships. These things are tough, but they have weak spots, she reported over the communication. Network. Aim for the feeding tubes and the eye clusters. Commander Hayes took his fighter squadron through the interior of a wounded Vorthic ship, dodging organic tentacles that tried to grab his fighters. It's like flying through the inside of a giant animal, he called out. The walls are bleeding, and everything is trying to eat us. The bioship Hayes was inside began to convulse, and then exploded from within, as his fighters found something vital and destroyed it with plasma charges. Organic matter scattered across space, some pieces still moving and trying to rejoin the main mass. Admiral, the Cathara are sending more transmissions, White announced. They want to know how we learned to fight so effectively. Morrison watched as another Vorthic feeding ship died under concentrated human fire. The alien creature had been trying to wrap its tentacles around a human cruiser, probably planning to digest it slowly. Instead, the cruiser's point defense systems had cut the tentacles to pieces, while the main guns punched holes through the creature's brain cavity. Tell them we come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years, Morrison replied. We learned to fight because everything on our planet wanted to eat us, poison us, or crush us. These Vorthic are just another predator. The battle was turning into a massacre. The Vorthic ships were individually powerful, but they had no tactics beyond rushing forward and trying to devour their enemies. Human ships worked together in coordinated attack patterns, covering each other and concentrating fire on the most dangerous targets. Sir, the remaining Vorthic vessels are retreating, Garcia reported. They are moving away from the crystal worlds and toward the edge of the system. Morrison watched the alien bioships flee, many of them trailing organic fluids and debris. Of the 50 Vorthic vessels that had attacked the human fleet, only 12 were still alive to run away. Human losses were 0 ships destroyed and only minor damage to a few vessels. "Admiral, the crystal being is requesting permission to come aboard," White announced. "She says she needs to understand what kind of warriors answered their call." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing Kithara space. The 3 crystal worlds were still under attack by other Vorthic ships, but the immediate threat to the human fleet was over. For the first time in months, there was hope in this system. "Grant permission," Morrison ordered, "and prepare the conference room. I think it's time we properly introduced ourselves to our new friends." High Archon Zelthera materialized on the Liberty's transporter pad 30 minutes later, her crystal form glowing with patterns that the computer translated as amazement and gratitude. She looked around at the metal corridors and human technology with obvious fascination. "Your ships," she said through the translator, "they are not grown or crystallized. They are built from dead matter, yet they fight with such precision." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward to serve as translator and cultural liaison. "High Archon, we would be honored to learn more about your people. But first, we need to know everything about the Vorthic. How long have they been attacking you?" 6 months since the first scouts arrived, Zelthera replied. "But according to our historical records, they have been consuming worlds across the galaxy for millions of years. We had hoped the ancient summoning would bring us a few warriors to help us escape." Morrison exchanged looks with his officers. "High Archon, I think there has been a misunderstanding. We did not come here because of any summoning. We came because we heard innocent people calling for help, and we could not ignore that call." Zelthera's light patterns shifted to what looked like confusion. "But the texts speak clearly of Deathworld. Warriors who answer the call of the desperate." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "High Archon, I think your ancient texts were more accurate than you realized. Earth is definitely a death world, and we definitely answered your call. We just did it because it was the right thing to do." The crystal being was quiet for a long moment, her internal light flickering as she processed this information. "You came to fight for strangers. You risked your lives for people you had never met." "That is what we do," Morrison replied simply. "Now, let's talk about how we are going to save your people and stop the Vorthic from ever threatening anyone again." High Archon Zelthera walked through the corridors of the UFS Liberty with wonder and confusion. Everything around her was made of metal and synthetic materials that had never been alive. The walls did not pulse with life energy like Kithara. Crystal structures. The lights did not respond to emotions. Yet somehow, these dead materials had been shaped into a vessel more powerful than anything her people had ever imagined. "Your ship feels cold," she told Dr. Vasquez as they walked to the conference room. "How do you live surrounded by lifeless?" "Matter?" Dr. Vasquez smiled. "We learned to work with materials that could survive anything our world threw at us. Crystal is beautiful, but it breaks. Metal bends, but does not shatter." In the conference room, Admiral Morrison had assembled his senior staff along with several Kithara representatives who had transported over from their command station. The cultural exchange that followed revealed truths that shocked both species. Commander Veltar, the Kithara military leader, examined human weapon specifications with growing amazement. "These kinetic rounds travel at 90% of light speed," he said, his crystal form flickering with disbelief. "The energy required should tear your ships apart." "Our ships are built to handle that recoil," explained Captain Rodriguez. "We design everything to survive extreme stress, because that is the only way things last on Earth." "But why do you need such powerful weapons?" asked Elder Torvin, who had joined the meeting via holographic projection from Kithara Prime. "Before the Vorthic came, we had never seen violence between intelligent species." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Elder, may I ask about your world? What was it like growing up as a Kithara?" Torvin's projection brightened with pleasant memories. Our crystal cities grow naturally from the planet's energy matrix. Food appears where we need it, created by harmonic resonance. The weather is always perfect. We have no diseases, no natural disasters, no predators. We spend our time creating art, music, and exploring the beauty of existence. The human officers exchanged glances. Captain Rodriguez spoke first. That sounds like paradise. But how did you survive long enough to evolve intelligence? Survive? Zelthera's light patterns showed confusion. We did not need to survive anything. Our worlds provided everything we required. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing Earth. High Archon, this is our homeworld. Perhaps seeing it will help you understand why we are different. The display showed Earth from space, blue and white and beautiful. But as the image zoomed in, the Kithara representatives began to see the reality of human existence. Massive storms that could destroy cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that burned everything for hundreds of miles, ice, ages that covered continents in frozen death. Your world tries to kill you, whispered Veltar, his crystal form dimming with horror. Every day, Morrison confirmed. But that is just the beginning. The display changed to show Earth's biological history. Predators with teeth like swords hunting in packs. Diseases that killed millions. Poisonous plants and animals. Competition for food and territory that lasted for millions of years. We evolved. Intelligence because we had to, Dr. Vasquez explained. The species that could not think, plan, and work together died out. Only the smartest and toughest survived long enough to have children. Zelthera was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Your entire species was forged by constant warfare with your own planet. Not just the planet, added Commander Hayes, who had joined the meeting after securing his fighter squadrons. We also fought each other. Humans have been at war with other humans for thousands of years. We learned tactics and strategy by fighting ourselves. Elder Torvin's projection flickered with what looked like distress. How did you survive such a world without destroying yourselves? We almost did, several times, Morrison admitted. But we also learned something important. The strong have a duty to protect the weak. When we heard your distress call, every human ship in space responded because we cannot stand to see innocent people suffer. The conversation was interrupted when Lieutenant White's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, we have completed analysis of the captured Vorthok biosamples. Dr. Martinez needs to speak with you immediately. Dr. Carlos Martinez, the fleet's leading biologist, entered the conference room carrying a datapad and looking very worried. Admiral, the Vorthok are worse than we thought. They are not just predators. They are a biological weapon that has been spreading across the galaxy for millions of years. He activated his own holographic display, showing the internal structure of Vorthok bioships. These creatures consume all organic and mineral matter from a planet, then use that material to grow new ships. Each feeding cycle makes them stronger and more numerous. How many worlds have they consumed? Asked Zelthair, though her tone suggested she did not want to know the answer. Based on their biological complexity and the historical records we found in their neural tissue, approximately 50,000 worlds over the past 2 million years, Martinez replied. They represent an extinction-level threat to all life in the galaxy. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The Vorthok were not just threatening the Kithara. They were a plague that would eventually spread to every inhabited world, including Earth. There is more, Martinez continued. The bioships are all connected through some kind of organic network. When we destroyed the ships in the first battle, that information was transmitted to every other Vorthok vessel in the galaxy. They now know about us. Morrison felt a cold anger building in his chest. Are you saying they will come after Earth? Eventually, yes. The Vorthik follow a pattern. They consume all available worlds in a region, then spread to new areas. Human space will be on their list. Commander Foster spoke up from across the table. Admiral, that changes everything. We are not just here to save the Cathara anymore. We are fighting for our own survival. Zelthara's light patterns shifted to show deep sadness mixed with determination. Admiral Morrison, my people brought this threat to your attention. We feel responsible for putting your species in danger. Morrison looked at the crystal being with respect. High Archon, you did not create the Vorthik, but together we can stop them. How? Asked Veltar. Their numbers are beyond counting. They have consumed 50,000 worlds. They have never fought humans before, Morrison replied. Every species they faced was either peaceful like you or primitive compared to us. They have never encountered an enemy that developed military technology over millions of years of constant warfare. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. Admiral, if we are going to fight a galactic war, we need more than just the ships we brought. We need intelligence on Vorthik locations, supply lines, and breeding grounds. The Cathara Crystal Network can help with that, Zelthara offered. Our exploration ships mapped most of this galaxy sector before the Vorthik arrived. We know where their main hive clusters are located. Dr. Vasquez pulled up star charts showing the surrounding systems. If we can identify their primary breeding worlds, we might be able to stop them from producing more ships. That would require a full-scale military campaign, Morrison said. We would need to coordinate with Earth Command and mobilize the entire Terran Defense Force. Hayes stood up from his chair. Admiral, my pilots are already asking when we get to hit back. The Vorthik made a mistake when they decided to threaten peaceful people in front of humans. Morrison looked around the table at both human and Cathara faces. Two species that had evolved under completely different conditions, now united against a common enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. High Archon, are your people willing to share their star charts and help us plan a counterattack? Morrison asked. Zelthara's crystal form blazed with light. Admiral, the Cathara have never known war, but we learn quickly. If you can teach us to fight, we will stand beside you against the Vorthik. Morrison smiled grimly. High Archon, by the time we are done, the Vorthik are going to learn why Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. And they are going to discover that humans do not just defend ourselves. We eliminate threats. The conference room filled with the harmonic tones of Cathara agreement and the quiet determination of human resolve. The galaxy had never seen a partnership like this one, and the Vorthik were about to face an enemy, unlike anything in their millions of years of conquest. The war for galactic survival was about to begin. Admiral Morrison stood before the largest war council in galactic history. The conference room aboard the Liberty had been expanded to accommodate representatives from 12 human fleet groups and 47 Cathara survivor councils. Holographic displays showed star maps covering half the galaxy, marking thousands of Vorthik hive clusters in red. The situation is simple, Morrison announced to the assembled commanders. The Vorthik have been spreading like a cancer for 2 million years. If we do not stop them here and now, they will eventually consume every world in the galaxy, including Earth. Captain Rodriguez pointed to a cluster of red markers near the galactic core. Intelligence reports indicate this is their primary breeding region. 17 systems containing nothing but Vorthik nursery worlds where they grow new bioships. Commander Hayes had spent weeks analyzing Vorthik tactics with Cathara survivors. They have no concept of strategic retreat or defensive planning. They only know how to attack and consume. We can use that against them. High Archon Zelthara's crystal form pulsed with determined light. the Kithara Crystal Network has identified their main supply routes. They move resources between worlds using organic transport vessels that are lightly defended. Dr. Vasquez had been working around the clock with Kithara scientists to understand Vorthic biology. We have developed a biological weapon that will turn their own reproductive systems against them. If we can deploy it on their nursery worlds, we can stop them from creating new ships. Morrison looked at the faces around the table, both human and alien. 3 months ago, these species had never met. Now they were planning the largest military campaign in galactic history. The plan is complex, but necessary, Morrison explained. We will strike simultaneously across 73 systems. Captain Rodriguez will lead the assault on the primary breeding worlds. Commander Hayes will coordinate fighter strikes against their supply lines. Colonel Amy Parker will lead ground operations to plant the biological weapons. Parker had arrived 2 weeks earlier with the largest Marine force ever assembled. Her troops had been training with Kithara crystal technology, learning to fight inside living ships and organic structures. My Marines are ready, Admiral, Parker reported. We have developed new tactics for fighting inside bioships. Plasma charges can disrupt their neural networks, and kinetic weapons work well against their internal organs. The war began at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time. Across 73 star systems, human ships dropped out of hyperspace and began the largest coordinated attack in recorded history. The Vorthic, expecting easy prey as always, found themselves facing an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for months. Rodriguez led the main assault on the Vorthic breeding worlds. Her battle group consisted of 50 heavy cruisers and 200 support vessels, all armed with weapons specifically designed to destroy biological targets. The breeding worlds were massive organic structures that floated in space like artificial planets, pulsing with alien life. All ships commence bombardment, Rodriguez ordered. Target the spawning chambers and neural control centers. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships poured concentrated fire into living worlds that screamed through space as they died. Vorthic bioships swarmed to defend their nurseries, but they were fighting an enemy that understood warfare in ways they never could. Hayes led his fighter squadrons through the interior passages of a massive breeding world, his pilots dodging organic defenses that tried to digest their ships. The neural center is 3 miles deeper, he reported. We are taking heavy fire from internal immune systems. His fighters carried specially designed biological weapons created by the Joint Human Kithara research team. When they reached the breeding world's brain, they released viral agents that would rewrite the creature's genetic code and turn it against its own species. Package delivered, Hayes announced as his squadron escaped the dying breeding world. That thing will not be making any more bioships. Colonel Parker led the most dangerous missions, taking her Marines inside Vorthic Hive ships to plant biological weapons directly into their reproductive systems. Her troops fought through living corridors filled with acid, toxic gases, and organic weapons that grew from the walls themselves. This is Parker to all Marine units, she called over the communication network. Remember, these things heal fast, so keep moving and hit them hard. Do not give them time to adapt to our tactics. Her Marines had learned to fight in environments that would kill most species. They wore sealed armor that could survive in vacuum, extreme heat, crushing pressure, and alien atmospheres. When Vorthic bioships tried to digest them, they cut their way out and kept fighting. The battle raged for 6 days across the entire galaxy sector. Human ships proved superior in every engagement, but the Vorthic had numbers beyond counting. For every bioship destroyed, 3 more appeared from deeper space. Admiral, we are making progress, but they keep bringing reinforcements, Rodriguez reported from the front lines. We have destroyed 12 breeding worlds, but there are still dozens more in this system alone. Morrison watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The human fleet was winning every battle, but they were getting spread too thin. The Vorthix seemed to have unlimited numbers. Then High Archon Zelthura made a suggestion that changed everything. Admiral Morrison, what if we do not try to destroy all of them? She asked. What if we make them destroy themselves? Dr. Vasquez looked up from her biological research station. High Archon, what do you mean? The Vorthix are all connected through their organic network, Zelthura explained. If we could introduce a virus into that network, it would spread to every bioship in the galaxy. Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened with understanding. A genetic virus that turns their own biology against them. We could make them unable to reproduce, or even better, make them consume each other instead of other species. Morrison felt a cold smile cross his face. How long would it take to develop something like that? With Kithara crystal technology. To help, maybe 12 hours, Vasquez replied. The final phase of the war lasted only 3 days. Human ships captured several Vorthix bioships intact, allowing the joint research team to inject their genetic virus directly into the alien network. Within hours, the virus had spread to every Vorthix vessel in the galaxy. The results were immediate and devastating. Vorthix bioships began attacking each other, their modified genetics telling them that other Vorthix were food sources. Breeding worlds stopped producing new ships and started dissolving their own organic matter. The hive network that had connected the species for millions of years turned into a weapon that destroyed them from within. Morrison watched from the Liberty's Bridge as the last Vorthix hive cluster tore itself apart. Bioships that had terrorized the galaxy for eons were now consuming each other in a feeding frenzy that would not stop until none remained. Admiral, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy, Lieutenant White announced. The Vorthix biosignature is disappearing from every system. The virus has reached all of them. High Archon Zelthura stood beside Morrison, her crystal form glowing with amazement and gratitude. In 3 months, humans have accomplished what the galaxy could not do in 2 million years. You have eliminated the Vorthix completely. Morrison looked out at the stars where human ships now patrolled space that had been dark with alien terror for eons. High Archon, we told you that humans do not just defend ourselves. We eliminate threats. The war was over. The Vorthix horde, which had consumed 50,000 worlds and terrorized the galaxy for millions of years, was extinct. And across the galaxy, other species were emerging from hiding, learning for the first time about the warriors from Earth. Who had saved them all? What happens now? Zelthura asked. Morrison smiled and looked at the Kithara leader who had become humanity's first alien ally. Now we make sure this never happens again. The galaxy has protectors now, and we do not. Abandon our friends. The crystal being's light patterns shifted to show joy and hope. The ancient texts spoke of warriors from Deathworlds who would answer the call of the innocent. They never mentioned that these warriors would become guardians of all life. Morrison watched human ships spread out across liberated space, beginning the long work of helping survivor species rebuild their worlds. The Kithara had called for help in their darkest hour, and humanity had answered with everything they had. The galaxy would never be the same, but for the first time in millions of years, it was truly safe.